My name is Maria Lawal. I am a patient advocate, a patient engagement consultant with a lived experience as an osteosarcoma survivor, best-selling children's author, and hair and wig specialist. Osteosarcoma is a type of bone cancer that affects young children and adults. I was diagnosed with osteosarcoma when I was 14 years old. At the time of my diagnosis, a young 14-year-old black female. I was a 150-meter sprinter. I was very active. I was into basketball, athletics, volleyball, you name it. I was quite active. I was quite involved. So when at the beginning, my diagnosis presented on my left thigh as a hard lump. I went to my GP with my older brother. I remember my mom booking my appointment, and it was just a regular GP appointment. And I told him of my symptoms of the pain, because that was what I was experiencing at the time. And unfortunately, because of my age and being a young female, he said he wasn't allowed to explore the diagnosis side more without a female nurse present. So he sent me away with a few painkillers because he knew that I was an athlete, so he probably put it down to some sort of sports injury. And then I went back about 3 or 4 times, a few weeks and months after that, because the pain kept persisting and the lump kept getting bigger. But I still wasn't able to be seen. So fast forward, after one of my hectic trainings late at night and the pain got too much, my mom instructed my older sister to take me to A&E to get this lump investigated, and then from there was when I got the official diagnosis of osteosarcoma, which as a 14-year-old girl really turned my world upside down. So I was treated on a children's unit at the Manchester Children's Hospital. So that involved a round of chemotherapy, surgery to replace the bone from my left hip to below my knee with a metal prosthesis. So following on from completing this surgery and more chemotherapy, I was in remission and discharged, only to relapse a few months later in both lungs. Then that was my first encounter with personalized patient care, because then my consultant at that time presented to me the option of being treated on a children's unit or a teenager young adults unit in Manchester. And that was the first time I realized I had a voice and I had an opinion and I had an option when it came to my care and my treatment. So I opted for the option to be treated at the teenage and young adult ward at the Christian Hospital based in Manchester. So moving on to now being treated at a TYA unit, being surrounded by other young people my age going to either similar treatment to me or different type of cancer. And now a key thing during my treatment plan was having a Hickman a procedure done. So the video that I was presented to watch regarding procedure, what was going to happen surgery wise, side effect wise, and after effects, I remember it being quite triggering and off putting. And now at the TYA, we had like a monthly meeting that we could go to with other young people on the ward, that we would just talk about our treatment and have like an off day and just relax. And I remember just discussing with other young people and asking them, the ones that did have the Hickman line, how they found watching the video. And quite a few of us agreed that it was quite, traumatizing and off-putting. So I suggested to the youth coordinator at the time that myself and the other young people on the ward, why not create a new video with the patients, for the patients, about the Hickman procedure in lines to what the patient receiving the Hickman line is to expect, out the surgical treatment was going to go ahead and what's to happen. And we realized from creating that video and having, you know, the young patients connect with the medical professional and the medical team for other young people that will be receiving this treatment was quite an important step for us as patients that's already been through that procedure and find it quite triggering as a negative to inform young people, in a better way, because we found that peer-to-peer communication was encouraging. So even though we've already been through that stage of having the Hikma line fitted, and we've had to watch that unfortunately triggering video that was a negative to our treatment, being able to come together with my suggestion of creating that new video, and we had that shared understanding, that shared vision with a shared outcome with the clinical team, was a boost for myself as a patient advocate. Again, highlighted another positive step of how getting patients and clinicians working together to create something can have a positive effect. It was more positive, they felt more positively going for that procedure as opposed to watching the other video that was filled more surgical. So again, that was another positive thing that was highlighted in bridging that gap with patient advocate, having that opportunity, that avenue to work with clinical staff to create useful tools, useful videos, useful outlets that will inform patients to come of procedures and how that works well for the patient. After the section of the Hickman video, the youth coordinator approached me saying there was a team of researchers based in UCLH in London, and they wanted a group of young people to come aboard their research team and help with the branding and creating a logo for this research based in London. It was one of its kind. And because I was so strong in my patient advocacy journey, and I was always one of the young people on the ward that was quite vocal in regards to positives and negatives of my treatment and things that I thought would be useful in helping patient on the journey, you know, I thought it was the perfect opportunity to get involved with this new venture and see it was all about. So it involved getting a train down to London, myself and a group of other young people, and then we had the branding workshop where we came together with our, lived experience of our different cancers and different stages in our cancer journey, and were able to, look at things that were important to us in regards to if we were to be approached to join in any sort of survey or clinical trials, what would be the key things to look at? For example, the name of the survey, when on our treatment journey we are approached. Is it right at the beginning when you're being chucked loads of information about your diagnosis, your treatment plan? That would not be the most ideal time to approach a young person or a patient regarding joining on a survey, because it would just be information overload. Also, things like the way the information of the survey was being laid out, the terminology used, is it heavily jargon, is it in layman terms, how is it broken down, are you asking me to join a longitudinal study or a short study, how heavily jargon is it? If it's gonna be 50 pages of medical jargon words that's gonna go right over my head, as a young person freshly diagnosed, I'm not gonna want to get involved at all. So things of that nature, was what, you know we as young people came together to look at it when we were talking about the branding and the logo of the workshop, and that perception and the voices that we echoed and things that were brought up was such a new perspective for the research team of the bright light study that myself and other young people were then invited to come on board as a co-applicant or to become a young advisory member. But because of my my increased interest in not just as a patient advocate but a patient engagement specialist with my background knowledge of clinical and non-clinical trials and the importance of getting real patient voices at the beginning and midline stage, I was brought onto that bright light study as a co-applicant and as a co-researcher, again, which I think is very crucial and very important. And we need to bridge that gap and create more opportunities for patient advocate to come on board clinical and non-clinical research as co-applicants, because we hold vital informations that some research teams and clinical teams might not have thought about. Our perception are unique. When I came on board the Bright Light study as a co-applicant, the recruitment and retention rate went from 30% to 60% because I brought on ideas. For example, I suggested to the research team that in terms of recruitment, as well as sending, the survey in electrical and digital formats to consultants and hospital, why not create a video that can also be shared amongst, patient support groups? So myself and other young people on that advisory panel, created a video just with music in the background and with a dancer, and we shared our experience as a patient advocate and how that made us feel coming onto the research panel with our lived experience as a cancer survivor, either going through treatment at that time or like myself, I'd already finished treatment at that time, but coming on board a clinical trial, a clinical research, and giving my opinion about the methodology and framework of that particular research and the positive and negatives of my experience and how I feel like can improve and change things for other young people that will be diagnosed as well. So again, that was another positives in regards to highlighting the importance of bridging the gap with patient advocates and connecting them with clinical and non-clinical teams and getting them involved in patient research at the early stages. In addition to the success of working with the Bright Light team as a co-researcher on their numerous research, I also worked with the Teenage Cancer Trust on the Young Advisory Panel by suggesting, in regards to in the young teenage and adult room, having a small bed for patient and family to be able to stay whilst the young person was on treatment. Because from my personal experience, when I was going through my journey, my treatment lasted 8-9 months, and my mum, bless her soul, spent every single day of my treatment sleeping in the chair next to me every single day, watching me go through that treatment. And that for me, as a 14-15-year-old girl, was so traumatic and a part of my childhood, a part of my treatment care that I wished was better for her. So being able to suggest the implementation of having beds, you know, in the room with the young person to have their loved one being able to stay, or having the option for having their loved ones to stay overnight or for a couple of days, and to actually see that coming to fruition, I was implemented when the new TY8 unit was built, was another positive for me in regards to the importance of speaking of with patient advocacy and personalized care, because that was a shared problem that other young people were facing. But with the structure and framework of creating awards, that wasn't something that wasn't necessarily on the front line of the medical teams. So, those are one and two examples of things and of situations regarding personalized care that I felt like was important to me as a young person, as a young black female going through my cancer journey with the lived experience of osteosarcoma, and I survived it 13 years in remission. I, you know, I'm very passionate about echoing the importance of patient advocacy and bridging that gap with clinical and non-clinical researches. So once again, my name is Maria Lawal. I, as a patient advocate, am strongly passionate about using my voice and my platform and my lived experience as a cancer survivor in the importance of bridging that gap of patient advocate and engaging with patient consultant experts like myself, with the research teams, with the clinical and non-clinical teams on the frameworks and methodology of their treatment care, because then that improves lives for the patient presently and life after treatment as well, which is very important. Thank you very much.